How's it going, everybody? This is the 2 minute drill mock draft, the final one of the year. We weren't able to produce any this year, unfortunately. I know you guys love to see that content, and we wanted to give it to you, but we fell a little bit behind with our profiles. We are officially done with those. We've covered as many rookies as we can through the cycle. The 2024 NFL draft is happening this Thursday. And before it all starts, we wanted to get a one-round mock draft in. So I'm Michael Rochman. That's Bailey Kumar. Bailey, how are you doing?
Doing great. A little disappointed we didn't get more mocks done, but better one than nothing, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, really. One over zero, absolutely. And speaking of one, Chicago Bears on the clock with number one pick. And, we're going to go crazy here. We're going to go off the wall. We aren't here to just follow the chalk selection. So when the Chicago Bears are up, they're going to take a little sleeper of mine, Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC, a guy no one's really talking about, no one's really considering as a candidate for the first pick. But, just a sneaky suspicion he could be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, you really went off the board on that one. I don't think I even have him in my top 50, but you know, you can reach if you want to.
You're going to go ahead and take the even pick. So why don't you start us off with the Washington Commanders?
Yeah, so I got the Commanders at 2 here, and I got them taking Jayden Daniels. I know there's some dispute over this pick. Are they gonna go Maye? Are they gonna go McCarthy even? Are they gonna go Daniels? But Daniels is my QB2, and I think the NFL also views him as the QB2. So I'm gonna stay true to that, and I'm gonna make him the second selection in this draft.
Yeah, I'm expecting a lot of chaos to start circulating around all these quarterbacks. And at number three, maybe just a little bit of bias on my end of who I prefer versus what I think will happen. But, I think the Patriots go Drake May at number three. I think when you consider the success that Alex Van Pelt just had with Joe Flacco, with that kind of gunslinger mentality at quarterback, and you consider the just tools and traits that you want to invest in when you're picking a quarterback this early, I get the efficiency argument for JJ McCarthy, and I understand that. I think there's a real case that he ends up being a quality starter in the NFL. But I think when you're gambling on upside like a quarterback where you need a difference maker under center, I think Drake May is the guy, and that's where I have them going with the third pick.
Yeah, myself, I have McCarthy over May, but this is definitely a viable pick for the Patriots here. I think it's pretty close between the two after Daniels. So yeah, they can go either way. I know you're a bigger May guy, so this is probably some wishful thinking on your part too.
I'll admit, maybe a little bit, but it's where my heart is. I want May or Daniels to be the selection at number three, so I'm just hoping that it's one of those two, and I'll be happy on draft night. What are the Arizona Cardinals going to do it for, though?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of rumors around this pick. Mainly, are they going to trade back or are they going to stay and take Marvin Harrison Jr.? I have them staying and taking Marvin Harrison Jr. I think the trade back just doesn't give them enough what they need. They have a ton of picks, they have a ton of capital. They don't really need to trade back and like accumulate more capital. Just stay here, take the elite guy, get Kyler Murray another weapon. It's that simple. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. That's the main idea I want to get across here. Just take this
Yeah, and
easy
I
pick.
Yeah, and I think for Arizona, you have kind of opened up a spot for Harrison Jr. to where you can trade back maybe and still get one of the neighbors or a Doomsday, but you don't really want to play with your food when you have an opportunity at getting, a five-star meal. Marvin Harrison Jr. is about as complete a prospect as you can ask for from a wide receiver rookie standpoint. And, I think he steps in and is immediately a wide receiver one caliber player for that offense. So, getting him paired up with Kyler Murray, who, you don't necessarily have to worry about right now. But if you mess this up somehow by trading down and then, if there's a run on wide receivers and you end up without one of those top three guys, maybe that kind of irks Kyler Murray and it starts to snowball into, what are the Arizona Cardinals doing for me to put me in a successful position? You need to surround this guy with talent. We saw it last year where they drafted Paris Johnson Jr. upon his request. They trade up to do so. I think they're just going to stay put and take Marvin Harrison Jr. I absolutely agree with you. But a team that's not going to stay put at number five, I think Los Angeles Chargers trade. I know it's one that is very commonly mocked, so this isn't necessarily a breaking idea, but I think the Chargers and Minnesota Vikings get a trade done. In my head, I'm kind of thinking pick 11, 23, and probably a next year's first, maybe a little bit extra added on. But since we're only doing a one round mock, what matters most is that 11 and 23 are going to the Chargers and five is going to the Vikings, who have traded up to acquire JJ McCarthy, the quarterback out of Michigan, the guy you love so much, Bailey, the efficient quarterback that I think fits well in the Kevin O'Connell offense. get him throwing to guys like TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson, and you're setting up a young quarterback for success. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like too perfect of a fit, which is why you kind of think why the Vikings kind of made that trade with the Texans beforehand is kind of this is the idea to trade up and get yourself a quarterback. They get McCarthy who can step in and execute that offense at a high level while they still have a lot of good pieces on that offense. So yeah, I agree. This is a great fit. Yeah, and then I am up next with the Giants, even pick. They are going to stay here and they're going to take Malik Neighbors. Now, the Giants have not done a good job at surrounding Daniel Jones with offensive talent. Not for lack of trying. They had the Kenny Galladay signing, they had the Darren Waller trade, but those kind of haven't worked out. So now they have to kind of shift their focus towards the draft. And I mean, Neighbors is as good as a wide receiver prospect as you can kind of hope for at 6.
Yeah, I think the signing of Drew Lock was a little bit more telling for me. Obviously, if someone they love falls down to them here at number 6, maybe they'd consider it, but I think they're content rolling into the season with Jones and Locke as their main quarterbacks. I don't know if I agree with the decision. I don't know if I agree with the idea that those two guys are capable of being the quarterback for a team that I think would be successful. But, I think that's the direction that they're heading in. So Neighbors makes sense to me. I think you need to add a weapon. If you're going to buy into Daniel Jones, you need to give him the best opportunity possible. You get a wide receiver unit that, I think is a little bit sneaky underrated with Malik Neighbors now wide receiver 1, Darius Slayton, the guy that I think is a little bit undervalued when it comes to NFL wide receivers, Wan'Dale Robinson, who really kind of came on strong in that back half of 2023, and Jalen Hyatt, who's a guy that, they're probably very confident in is going to take another step next season. So you're kind of filling out that wide receiver unit. And I think Neighbors is the perfect guy to kind of plug in and piece it all together. At number 7, Bailey, this is your team, the Tennessee Titans, and probably one of the most chalk picks of them all because, I mean, it just makes way too much sense. Joe Alt, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame, you get him working with Bill Callahan, the offensive line guru. I mean, Alt is already such an impressive prospect, but you get him working with a guy that has consistently churned out wonderful offensive tackles, and I think it's just a match made in heaven. This is really the best way of making sure that Will Levis is set up for success. This is the best way of ensuring that your team is starting to find their foundational pieces for the future while also, kind of making it to where you can contend in 2024.
Yeah, let you have the odd picks just because the Titans pick was so obvious, and I let you pick for the Patriots. But yeah, this is kind of just like a slam dunk pick. I do think it's a bit overly picked in mocks. Like every mock you'll see is Joe Alt at 7, Joe Alt at 7. If the Titans have confidence in this offensive tackle class and they think, hey, maybe we can get a guy later and we can trust in Callahan to kind of coach him up and get him ready for week 1 of the NFL, I could definitely see them going in a different direction at this pick. But yeah, Alt is a safe pick. It's what the fans want. It's what Will Levis, I'm sure, wants. So yeah, just a easy pick here.
Yeah, and I
Um,
agree with you. But before you go on the clock next, I'm sure you're chomping at the bit to pick with the Falcons. But a little phone calls coming in from a good old friend of ours, Chris Ballard, and he is wanting to move up. You know, the Indianapolis Colts desperately need a weapon to kind of plug in and play opposite of Michael Pittman. They're willing to offer, pick number 15, maybe their second rounder, pick number 46, for your first round, number 8, and, maybe a little sprinkle in return.
you know what? The Falcons have a new head coach. They're looking to add some guys that fit their culture, fit their system a bit more. The roster's a little barren when you look at it. They can definitely use those extra picks, and there's a lot of guys they like here. A lot of guys the Falcons can go with, so they don't mind the move back to 15 as much. So, yeah, the Falcons will accept that offer.
And with Neighbors and Harrison Jr. off the board, it's easily Rome Odunze. For me, Rome Odunze is 1B for the wide receivers in this class. I think looking at what he did at Washington, he was more of a vertical threat in that offense. But when he gets into the NFL, I think he's going to be utilized a lot more in the short to intermediate game, and he's going to showcase even more skills than he was really kind of advertised as through this process. I think he's such a complete wide receiver. He has a phenomenal frame, bigger than Marvin Harrison Jr., weighs a little bit more, same height. But, I think this is a guy that is going to step in and potentially be a better wide receiver in time than Michael Pittman, who's already someone I'm very high on in the NFL.
Yeah, Odunze is a great player, and the Colts have kind of sat on their hands in the last couple of years. You've been waiting for them to make this aggressive move up, make this aggressive trade. And I think this is kind of the perfect opportunity when you have Richardson on the rookie contract to kind of make the splash play and try to build an amazing offense.
And I'm back on the clock again, this time with the Chicago Bears. And I'm going to go with Dallas Turner. I think after he doesn't go at 8, it just makes way too much sense for Chicago. You brought in Montez Sweat and you saw the impact that happened on the defensive line, but you are still looking to continue to bolster the trenches. I think Dallas Turner is someone that the NFL loves. He's not necessarily my edge one prospect, but I think there's a lot of upside with his length and get off at the line of scrimmage, especially at the snap. He's so quick. And with that length and combination of just overall athleticism and the production that he showed in 2023, he's an edge prospect that is worth investing in. And I think the Chicago Bears would be more than happy to do so with the 9th pick.
Yeah, Turner isn't my edge one prospect either, but this is definitely a guy that I think the NFL is going to love, and I definitely think is a great fit into that system. So yeah, the Bears kind of revitalize their offense with the Caleb Williams pick and hopefully revitalize their defense with this pick. And they can make some noise next year. I do think that division's kind of more wide open than people think. Maybe with the Lions taking the division title, but they can definitely be a wild card team after a draft like this.
Fair enough, and now the 10th pick, the New York Jets on the clock. They've kind of had an unfavorable board to this point. Who do you have them taking?
Yeah, this is not a great run out for the Jets, but they do get who I think is a very dynamic player, Brock Bowers, tight end, and I feel like Bowers has, kind of felt a lot of prospect fatigue this cycle. He's been such a top name for so long. It's just like wait for 2024 for Bowers. We've been hearing this guy's name for so long, and now it's finally here. People are poking holes in his game. You're getting the tight end positional value argument, but Bowers is such an electric player. He's a great fit on the Jets offense. He fits in so well with what they want to do and what they can do on offense that I think this is a slam dunk pick. It's a bit boring, I will say, but you get Aaron Rodgers another weapon. You help out the run game. It's Brock Bowers. It's a generational tight end prospect, if I might say.
Yeah, and I mean, you're looking for a weapon in that offense. Maybe the wide receiver options aren't as appealing after that top 3 falls off the board. Bowers could easily be that 4th most valuable weapon. We kind of talked about that on one of our 2-minute drill podcasts earlier in the season. So it would make sense if the Jets decided, maybe we like Tyler Conklin, but we view Brock Bowers as a good enough player to upgrade this offense and take it to the next level, especially when you are desperately trying to capitalize on the very small window that Aaron Rodgers is kind of offering this team right now. With the 11th pick, Los Angeles Chargers on the board, maybe they were wanting Bowers, but he doesn't get to them. So I think they go with a guy like Talisa Fuaga, who I just absolutely love. And maybe there's a little bit of my own personal evaluation being impacted with this selection. But, if you view a guy like Fuaga high enough, you aren't necessarily letting a guy like Trey Pipkins on the offensive line hold you back from making that selection. You're still willing to swing on the guy that you think is going to be a stud. And I think Fuaga absolutely will be in the NFL. His pulling ability and just overall run blocking prowess is something that we don't really see out of most offensive tackle prospects. I think he's going to be a phenomenal right tackle in the NFL. And I think if he was a left tackle, you'd be hearing a lot more conversation about him as OT1 in this class. I personally have him there. I think just everything he does on film for me wows me, and I think he's an absolute stud. But for the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman, they love to run the ball. And I think getting a dominant run blocker like Talisa Fuaga at right tackle and establishing that identity on the offensive line is one of their top priorities, even if Pipkins is a serviceable starter.
Yeah, like you said, the Chargers are going to run the ball this year. And this kind of pick allows them to kind of bolster that line and gives them that real, like, nasty run blocking edge that they need while kind of still being BPA. When they pick at 5, it's kind of awkward when you take somebody like Alter Neighbors because it kind of like pigeonholes you. But now that they got the Vikings' first 2-round picks, they can kind of do this pick and still know later in the draft they can address something else. They can address wide receiver, they can address corner, address something else. And so yeah, I really like this fit here.
Yeah, and I'm hearing there's some phone calls going on for that 12th pick.
There are some phone calls going on. I'm calling myself. So with the 12th pick, it is the Broncos on the clock. And the Broncos are kind of in a weird spot where it's kind of like, oh, they need a QB, but I'm not convinced that they do take a QB here. I kind of feel like They want to trade back. They want to kind of add some more capital, add some more draft picks. This is Sean Payne's team. This is his vision. He needs the picks to get the guys that fit that vision. And so they trade back here with the Eagles. Um, and the Eagles give up their first round pick and one of their seconds. They have two of them, so they can give up either one. And they take Kenyon Mitchell here at 12.
Yeah, Quinyon Mitchell is someone that I think is just phenomenal. And, Toledo doesn't have a lot of tape out there, so you kind of have to judge it in small spurts, especially when most quarterbacks are smart enough not to target him. So there's issues in terms of just like trying to get constant film and evaluation on him. But in limited film that's out there, he looks absolutely phenomenal. And then he went to the Senior Bowl where he was going against NFL prospect wide receivers and really neutralizing almost all of them. And I understand that the Senior Bowl is just a showcase, an event that is not necessarily going to translate to game success. But really, those drills that they run are often favoring the wide receiver. So the fact that a cornerback was able to stand out and look dominant in those drills, I think speaks volumes to the level of player that Mitchell is. He was kind of just far and away the best player on the field at that time. And I just, it's hard for me to think that the NFL doesn't notice that and values him highly because of it. So him going here, number 12, makes total sense to me.
Especially with kind of what you saw in the wild card game against the Bucks, how they kind of fared against the kind of heavy passing offense of the Bucks. They didn't really have an answer for them. Their DB core is getting a little bit older, aging a little bit. They really need some young talent in there that they can infuse, and they have the 2 seconds, so they can kind of be aggressive here and kind of make this move to get one of the top guys at the position.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. And, with the 13th pick, we're going a little bit off the wall, but it wouldn't be an off the wall pick, or it wouldn't be an NFL draft if it weren't the Raiders with an off the wall pick. Now, look, am I thinking that this is going to be awful for them? No, but I have the Raiders going Marius Mims at 13. I think they're willing to gamble on the upside. A guy like Antonio Pierce, I think inspires players very well. I think he brings the locker room together, and I think he gets the best out of players better than almost any coach already. And he's so young that I think that's just going to continue to improve as he continues to sort of establish himself as a coach in the league. And, with a guy like Mims, he checks every box. Really, the only question that is out there right now on him is just the lack of experience and, the ankle injury that's happening. So if the medicals come back clean, if you are willing to take the chance on developing him, I think he's a excellent right tackle prospect and could slot in right away on that offensive line. Yes, I understand that the inexperience is something that, especially with NFL front offices, can be something that, will almost move him down drastically on certain draft boards. But for the Raiders, I feel like they have sort of established this culture of trying not to overthink great players. And Amarius Mims just has every tool set you could look for in a tackle prospect. It's now just about if he can land and just, get on the field consistently. And I just don't think an NFL team is going to convince themselves out of Amarius Mims more than I think an NFL team would talk themselves into him.
Yeah, Mims is definitely kind of maybe the riskiest prospect in the that's being mocked in the first round, and the one with kind of the largest range where, like you said, it really depends on the medicals and how much teams are willing to gamble that he can kind of put it all together as that developmental prospect. But I mean, I do like the fit. The tackle is definitely a need for the Raiders. So this is something that I could see them doing. Maybe a QB here if the board falls differently, but this is a pretty good value pick for them.
And you're up with the Saints now at 14, and I see they're going to tackle as well.
Yeah, they're going tackle as well. They're going Fashanu. Kind of crazy that in the final mock draft that he's kind of fallen to 14. If you kind of like the mocks early in the year, even last year before he decided to return, you kind of saw him creeping into that top 10 area, and now he kind of falls all the way to offensive tackle 4 to 14 to the Saints, where this is a huge need for them, right? Trevor Penning hasn't really panned out as they expected. Um, and Ryan Ramczyk is kind of dealing with that regenerative issue. So this is kind of, sorry, degenerative issue. And so this is kind of a huge area of need for them right now. They need a tackle to kind of shore up one of the spots. You can kind of like maybe, you know, justify this by saying, hey, we'll try Penning on the right side. That kind of is a better fit as a run stuffer anyways, a run stuffer, run blocker anyways, kind of that nasty style fits better on the right side. And you have Fashanu who can slot in on the left side. So yeah, this seems like a great fit to me.
Yeah, and really, I don't think it speaks to Fashanu as a player where he's going right now. I think it just speaks to the level of this tackle class because even with Joe Alt off the board, there's still probably six tackle prospects that are worthy of first round discussion. And then there's even more that are, intriguing day two picks. So there's just so many tackle options that a guy like Fashanu, he checks so many boxes and he has so many great traits and he's such a phenomenal pass blocker that it could very easily happen where he is being taken in the top 10 or maybe being taken earlier. Who knows? But, this is a guy that I think as a prospect, he's phenomenal. It's just this class is so filled to the brim with top heavy tackle prospects and just other high caliber prospects as well that maybe push him down the board a little bit. And sometimes it just happens that way. And for Fashano, it seems to be the case.
So yeah, I'm back on the clock. With 15 the Falcons after the trade down. And this is like a pretty good run for the Falcons, I think. I think they can go in a lot of different directions here. I have them taking Leatu Latu here at the edge rusher spot. And there's a couple different ways you could have gone. You could have gone Byron Murphy at defensive tackle here. You could have gone Jazon Newton at defensive tackle here. You could have gone Verse at edge rusher here. But I think Latu kind of is a better fit for what the Falcons need. I think they think that they're pretty close in terms of where they are. When you sign Kirk Cousins, you kind of think that you're contending now. The window's short. You need pro-ready guys, and there might not be a more pro-ready player than Latu at the edge position.
Yeah, and really it's going to come down to where Raheem Morris feels he can succeed more with because I think assuming they trade down and it's between Latu and Murphy, I feel like there wouldn't really be many other contenders with Turner off the board at 9. So I really think between those two guys, he can't go wrong per se. So it's just about whether he thinks he can kind of capitalize on the Murphy upside or if he is just wanting the immediate contributions of a guy like Latu. And that's not to sell short on what Latu's potential is. It's just I think he's almost there at what he can already be because he's just so dominant at UCLA. Whereas Murphy, he still has some room to grow, but you put him with a guy like Raheem Morris and he can absolutely become something special. So they can't really go wrong with this selection here at 15 with the way the board is played out. But getting a guy like Latu, I think it's phenomenal for them. And I think it's going to help elevate their defense for sure. And, you're back on the board with 16 as well.
Yeah, and I have more offensive linemen going. A little bit of a run here. A lot of offensive linemen going off the board here. I have the Seahawks taking Troy Fautanu. Got to make sure I pronounce the name right. In the prospect breakdown of him, did not pronounce his name right. So hopefully I did a better job this time. And yeah, this kind of just seems like such an easy pick for them. They need guards really badly. You kind of look at their depth chart, lacking in the guard area, and Fautanu, see, I just said it again. Fautanu kind of slots in immediately and can be a really high level guard for them right out of the gate as they continue to kind of do this kind of retool with the new head coach, kind of see what they have. And, this gives them a pretty good offensive line.
Yeah, and Ryan Grubb is the offensive coordinator, so he worked with him at Washington. I think this is another great tackle prospect. You're kicking him into guard, so obviously maybe not staying around at tackle, but it's just another great lineman for this class. And I think for Seattle, you've lost so much on the interior offensive line that getting a guy like Fautanu makes total sense, and I think helps bolster the trenches where you kind of need to be good because a lot of people wanted to throw blame on Geno last season, but a lot of the issues came from up front on the interior of their offensive line. So getting some stability there with a guy that is already a great prospect, has experience in the scheme, and probably steps in and can play pretty much anywhere you need him to on the offensive line. It makes total sense to me, and I think Seattle would definitely be making a lot of sense with that selection. Now, with the 17th pick, I think it's easier to kind of make less sense. No offense to Mr. Balky, but he goes a little bit weird with his draft picks. I think personally, if I'm drafting for the Jaguars and I'm making the decision of what I would do, I'm probably going with a cornerback or trying to find some help on the interior of my defense or offensive line. I guess they signed Armstead, so not so much interior defense, but instead we're going with Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver for LSU, a guy that I think you kind of look at the connection at Clemson where T. Law had T. Higgins, and I'm not saying that Brian Thomas Jr. is going to step in and be T. Higgins for this offense. But I think that big bodied receiver where you can let T Law kind of trust himself and throw the ball deep with a big playmaker on the outside is how you utilize T Law at his best because he's always going to be a little bit of a gunslinger that trusts his arm maybe a little bit too much. But when you have a guy that is downfield, giving him such a big catch window to make those throws, you're probably going to convert on those throws. So, I think it's a great pairing. I don't necessarily love Brian Thomas compared to the consensus opinion on him. But in terms of fits, I think he fits really well into this Jacksonville Jaguars offense. And I think it could work really well as a result.
Yeah, I think the Jags were not expecting this offseason to lose Ridley, especially to the division rival like the Titans. So this is kind of not so much a panic move, but more of a we are really missing this guy in our offense kind of move. And I would say Thomas actually fits better for the Jags with what they want from Ridley, kind of using him as that vertical sideline guy where he can beat people with speed. Ridley is not really like he can be used like that, but that's not his like actual strengths. So who knows? This could actually make the Jaguars offense better than it was last year. He's more of a natural fit for the role that they want him in. So yeah, I think this is a great fit and a great pick.
And now you're on the board with 18 and the Cincinnati Bengals, missing playoffs last year. They're looking to make a great pick. What do you have them doing?
Yeah, I'm not sure how popular this will be with the Bengals fans, but I have them taking JC Latham, and I know the Bengals signed Trent Brown to be the right tackle, but he signed for a 1 year deal. You still need a long-term answer after that, and who knows, if he's going to stay up with his age. You kind of need another backup option there. And I think Latham is a great right tackle prospect. Really fits what the Bengals like to do in their pass blocking scheme and run blocking. And I just think this is almost like too natural of a fit. They do need some help in other positions, but this just seems like such a Bengals MO pick. When you look at what they've done in the past, you take the big lineman from the big school. So this is why I kind of had them penciled down. This is like a tendency pick almost.
Yeah, Cincinnati loves to win with power up front. And I think JC Latham is probably one of the most powerful prospects in this class. He is a steamroller of a run blocker. He has so much size, but it's not just size, it's how he uses it. He has great athleticism and burst behind his pads. I think a lot of people had this misconception that the Alabama offensive line was bad, and JC Latham was a big part of that. But he was phenomenal this year. A lot of it was inexperience throughout the other four spots on the offensive line that created the issues for Alabama. Latham was a stud. So, you get him in that Cincinnati offensive line that you've sort of been addressing and improving year to year for the Bengals, but you could definitely always find that final piece that I think kind of puts it all together and helps you reach that next tier of, good to great offensive line that you've been wanting for so long in Cincinnati. And I understand the concern, maybe you're saying, oh, Jonah Williams didn't pan out, Alabama offensive tackles always have their concerns in the NFL, but I don't know, man. You don't pass on someone just because of what helmet they wear. I think you look at what they offer on film, and JC Latham offers a ton. With the 19th pick, the Los Angeles Rams on the board. And, I don't think he personally falls here on draft day, but with him available, you just kind of have to do it. Byron Murphy, defensive tackle out of Texas. Aaron Donald retired. Easy to talk about, easy to understand why that impact is one that you're going to want to desperately replace. Kobe Turner's there, but if you can get another guy on that interior defensive line, then you're really helping recover the losses that you had when Aaron Donald departed this offseason. And a guy like Byron Murphy has so much speed, so much ability in terms of just natural power behind his pads as a pass rusher. He's going to be disruptive in the pros. And I think in a place like Los Angeles that has had success in developing defensive tackles, a guy like Byron Murphy with so much upside just makes total sense.
Yeah, this is definitely kind of later than I think you would expect Murphy to go, but when you look at the board, the Bengals could easily take him, the Seahawks could take him, the Falcons could take him, even the Chargers could have taken him at 11. But I feel like he's kind of like the secondary option, and then he kind of just fell due to the other teams needing more bigger needs at the positions. But yeah, this is a great fit. Obviously, like you said, with the departure of Aaron Donald, and he can slide in right into that role for them, I think, and they can kind of not seamlessly. It's very hard to seamlessly transition when you lose a Hall of Famer like Donald, but kind of fit this guy into the new and fit this new guy into the system, and he can kind of play that same role.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And if you're Los Angeles, you are looking to continue to improve this defense. You've added to your secondary. You have a phenomenal offense, especially when healthy. Now it's just about making sure your trenches are up to par and, continuing to fill out the depth of your roster. Getting a guy like Byron Murphy on the defensive line just completely elevates a position that just, as you said, lost a Hall of Famer and potentially one of the greatest defensive players of all time.
With the 20th pick, I have the Steelers here taking offensive line, kind of a big need for them. Kind of the question is, where will they address the offensive line? Here, I have them taking Graham Barton and I have him playing center for them. This is kind of a really big need for the Steelers right now. If you look at their depth chart, this pick easily could have been a tackle, but I think Barton right here is too good of a value to pass up.
Yeah, I think Barton is another guy that really wouldn't shock me if he ends up going earlier than here in the mock. It seems like the NFL absolutely loves him. I think really he could go as early as maybe 12 to Denver. It wouldn't shock me. There's just, a lot of smoke about Graham Barton right now in terms of just the speculation on how high he'd go in the NFL or in the NFL draft. But, here with Pittsburgh, I think if he's on the board, it makes total sense. He is a guy that can really play wherever you need him. But I think ideally he's stepping in at center for the Steelers, and he gets after it. I mean, when you talk about motor on an offensive lineman, he is someone that just brings it every single snap. He's willing to try to just destroy his assignment, and I think that type of mentality kind of fits the Pittsburgh mantra. So I think he'd be an excellent pick and be a great addition to the offensive line. With the 21st pick, Miami Dolphins on the board. I think there's a lot of interesting pathways they could go here. You have kind of faced the year one nightmare of what is tight cap situation where you've let Christian Wilkins hit free agency and you've let some other great pieces go on the market. But, right now, I think you have to just kind of reload on what you have lost. And I think Trezon Newton out of Illinois is a guy that would make total sense in doing so. You get him at the 3 tech spot. I think he is really one of the more well-rounded defensive lineman prospects I've seen in a long time. He reminds me of Grady Jarrett, despite being smaller. He can kind of stick in the middle and take on blocks and stop the run. But then you watch him as a pass rusher, and he's extremely disruptive, and he's able to cover a lot of ground with his feet. He's a great athlete. He's a great player. And for Miami, I think you just need to hit on guys that are going to be studs at positions that you are losing via free agency because your budget is getting tight in South Beach. And they could go receiver. They could add some speed and add like a guy like Xavier Worthy and just maybe be a nightmare team for off our defenses to go against. But, I think a guy like Newton just brings way too much value to your defense. You need to win on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think the Dolphins did bleed a lot of talent in this free agency portion without replacing it that well. So this draft is all about how do we get effective rookie contributors to kind of step in and fill the slot that we've lost in the offseason. And Jazon Newton is a guy that I absolutely love too. I think I had him as a top 12 pick when I did my prospect review of him. And he's a great fit in that Dolphins 3 tech position. As you said, they lost Wilkins, and this is kind of like a slam dunk pick for them. I think effectively replacing Wilkins like that with a first round pick is something that they would do 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, and I think, it's never easy to replace a player that is as talented as Wilkins, but Newton just checks a lot of boxes for defensive lineman play. And I think for Miami, you've lost guys that are going to be impacting the front seven, whether it's Wilkins in free agency or guys like Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb to injuries where you don't know when they're going to be coming back. Hopefully they come back earlier in the season rather than later, but there's a realistic situation where through the first 6 weeks of the season, you're without Wilkins, Phillips, and Chubb in that front seven from last year. And you're going to have some issues. So getting a guy like Newton who can be a star in that front seven, even, as early as those first 6 weeks of his career, I think it brings a lot of value and a lot of impact that you need on this defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with the next pick, I believe I'm up again with the Broncos after they traded back from 12 with the Eagles. And this is a kind of a tough spot for the Broncos because when you're at that 12 spot, I think their options are a bit more clear in what they want to do. When you trade back into the first round, you kind of get some of those QBs in the next tier names cropping up that could be value picks. here, like Bo Nix, Michael Penix, depending on your preference. But I don't think the Broncos go that route. I think they go defense, and I think they go Jared Verse. He's just such a good fit for them. It's a huge need for them at the edge position. And I kind of think that the Broncos are going to wait on QB. They're not going to try to pound a square peg into a round hole, and they're going to wait for their guy and make sure they get him and make sure he's a fit for that Sean Payton offense.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a lot of mock drafts and they're going to be saying, oh, Bo Nix at 12, or they're going to say, oh, Broncos trade down, but then take Bo Nix with whatever first round pick they have after moving back a little bit. But really, we see it every year where a lot of quarterbacks get propped up as first rounders, and then on draft day, there's a little bit of fall. Maybe not necessarily Will Levis last year, where people were expecting top five talk, but I mean, you look at guys like Hendon Hooker, who were talked about first round and then went in the third round, or guys similarly, that I think have just situations where this happens every year where QBs are talked about as first round prospects and they don't go in the first round. And it's not necessarily the like inclination on them being like busts in the league or anything like that. I think it's just the fact that media loves to run with rumors about quarterbacks. So NFL teams know they can feed that and count on the media to prop it up as much as possible. So a guy like Bo Nix, I think there's value. I think there is definitely upside to selecting him, and I think he has a chance to be a good NFL quarterback. But I don't think he goes in the first round, and I think it's more likely that he goes in the third round than in the first come draft day. As surprising as that may be, I guess. But yeah, I mean, for a guy like Jared Verse off of the edge, this was a Denver Broncos team that invested heavily in edge rushers during the offseason of 2023 heading into this season. And a lot of them gone. They partied with Randy Gregory. They weren't happy with the production that they got out of their investments. So, instead of just settling again with that position group that they felt was a weakness last offseason, they're probably going to try to upgrade it again with a guy that they feel fits their culture and kind of they can build to their own mold. And I think that's what they do with Jared Verse here at 22. At 23, the Chargers are on the clock, and the cornerbacks are slipping a little bit here. So I think you look at the impact that Will Johnson had on that defense at Michigan, and you kind of say, we need that guy. Asante Samuel Jr. is a very talented cornerback, but you need additional pass defense in support in that secondary. And a guy like Terrion Arnold out of Alabama, I think fits that bill. Look, personally, I prefer McKinstry, but the NFL seems to love Arnold. I think a lot of people are probably going to see him fall to this 23rd pick and scoff at our ability to make a good mock draft because they think he's going way earlier. I get it. All right. It's hard to slot everyone in a proper slot while also still trying to, add a little bit of the chaos that we really see on draft day. So give us a little bit of leeway here. We understand that maybe some of these guys are going a little later than they will on draft day. We know ball, don't leave the mean you don't know ball comments or watch tape comments. We do. It's just sometimes the board plays out a little funky, and the Chargers are beneficiaries of that because they get Terrion Arnold here at 23, a playmaker at cornerback that can make a lot of production on the football, whether it's interceptions or just deflecting the pass. He's a guy that I think a lot of people are willing to invest in the traits. They think that maybe he got picked on a little bit more than McKinstry at Alabama, but more translatable play that can be done in the NFL. And for the Chargers, you're looking to build up this defense, and you're willing to invest in guys that you think you can coach up yourself because you're bringing in a coaching staff that has really kind of transformed the Michigan program for Harbaugh and Minter. So with a guy like Arnold, if you think the traits are there, you're more than confident in what you can do to kind of get the most out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said, and I kind of think that when you kind of look at this board runoff, the Chargers are kind of huge winners in this mock draft with the picks that they've been able to make. These are two transformative pieces that they've been able to pick up instead of kind of getting one guy at 5. They definitely benefit from kind of this board shaking out in a maybe in a kind of unusual way and kind of get two elite players that they can kind of add to both sides of the ball and kind of, rebuild this team or retool this team as they see fit.
Yeah, and before you hop on the clock here with the Cowboys, I'm gonna ring you again, and this time it's coming from Robert Kraft. Maybe Elliot Wolf, maybe Jonathan Kraft. I don't know who's making the trade calls for this team, but the Patriots they're all on speakerphone talking to you, and they want to trade up to the 24th pick. They want a wide receiver. They're willing to offer, let's say 34th pick and 68th pick for 24 and maybe a little change on the side. What do you say?
I know who's on the line on this side. It's Jerry Jones. And as you know, Jerry Jones is going all in this offseason. Nothing says all in like trading out the first round. So kind of lines up with the other moves they've been doing, where they kind of been a little bit more passive. But the Cowboys, like other teams like the Dolphins, have kind of bled a lot of talent in the free agents. They need a lot of spots filled on their roster right now. And as much as it would be great to stay here and kind of get a higher impact guy, I think they're kind of forced to trade back a little bit, kind of take more value picks in the mid day twos and the day three picks, and kind of pick up maybe some lower value positions that are still huge needs. So yeah, I'm more than thrilled to kind of move back from 24 here.
Yeah, and with the Patriots on the board, I'm going to take Xavier Worthy out of Texas. Look, a lot of people maybe are dismissing Worthy as this next John Ross just because he ran a fast 40 time, but Worthy has been the guy at Texas in the passing game since he was a true freshman, and he has continued to be the guy even when wide receivers such as Jordan Whittington and Adonai Mitchell came in and will likely be drafted this year. I mean, Mitchell for sure, and I think Whittington gets selected sometime on day 3 as well. He is going to be an impact player, and if you're the New England Patriots, you are desperate to find a wide receiver who is going to produce to some capacity. Now, you aren't necessarily just looking to add someone that can get you 25 catches on the year and you're just like, okay, we'll take it because we just need anyone. But if you can find a guy that you A, feel confident in the production right away, and then B, think that there is a certain level of ceiling, and then C, matches the skill set of your quarterback with the deep threat ability that Worthy obviously has with his blazing speed, I think it just makes way too much sense here. And, a small trade up to get up to 24, I think the Patriots have to do it, especially with how much of a pursuit they made on Calvin Ridley in free agency.
Yeah, I mean the Patriots. I mean they have Xavier Worthy at home. They have Tyquan Thornton, but yeah, I don't think the Thornton pick kind of worked out, and it's clear they kind of maybe like these speed guys a little bit. So yeah, Worthy is a great pick here. Definitely take advantage of that QB pick, two rookie QB. Get those two rookies in together. Try to develop that deep connection that is so prevalent and so powerful in the NFL, and that could pay off dividends in a couple of years. But I don't know; those are kind of two high risk prospects, also in my opinion, with Maye and Worthy. So this could also blow up in their face. If this actually is what happens on draft night, it's going to be exciting times in New England, one way or another.
Yeah, there's definitely risk with it, but you can't just sit back on your hands on draft day, especially when you have an opportunity at a impact player like Xavier Worthy. You aren't necessarily sure that he's going to get by with some of the other teams that are on the board, especially in that later first round when teams like the Buffalo Bills and Baltimore Ravens and Kansas City Chiefs could all use a weapon in their offense. So, if you're the Patriots and you love a guy like Worthy, I think it's definitely worth moving up for, especially if the price to do so isn't too bad. I'm back on the clock with 25. And for the Green Bay Packers, I don't see any prevalent needs. They could maybe go for a strong safety or, potentially look at drafting a linebacker. But those are two position groups that I think are going to be more valued on day 2. And I think they have the option of taking them then. So instead, I'm going to be going with Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa. This was a team that ran, I think, the 12th most zone coverage in the NFL. And a guy like DeJean just absolutely locked down in zone. You can play him all over the secondary, but I think he's going to stick at cornerback. You don't necessarily need to have him on the field every single play. I think this is a situation maybe similar to Van Ness where you're willing to kind of let him sit by and wait a little bit. But there's been rumors that Jair Alexander isn't long for Green Bay. There's questions about Eric Stokes and his durability. Carrington Valentine had a solid rookie season, but I don't think it's enough to necessarily feel strongly that you're going to just be fine on the outside cornerback. If you have a player of this caliber at 25 where you can kind of take your BPA approach because you have a roster that's talented enough, then I think it makes total sense. And I think it just continues to bolster an already impressive and very young Packers roster.
Yeah. And this is kind of a pick that I think could go kind of off the wall come draft night. Because like you said, the Packers don't actually have a ton of needs. And they already have 2 second round picks, picked up another second from their Aaron Rodgers pick. trade, sorry. So they don't really benefit much from trading back. Like, what are you really trading back for when you already have those seconds? So it's kind of likely that they stay here and make a pick. And Cooper DeJean's kind of the safe pick. But this also could be a kind of crazy pick or kind of need that we're not expecting come draft day. But yeah, like you said, DeJean's a great fit on the Packers in their zone kind of defense. He's kind of a chess piece. Don't have to kind of cornhole him, it's not cornhole, pigeonhole him into that corner spot. He kind of play some safety. He can kind of be used all over the field and however matchups you want him. So he'll definitely see a lot of playing time on the Packers. And then, like you said, it gives you some options. And if you want to move on from somebody in your secondary, you kind of know that you have the gene there to kind of step in and fill the role that gets left by them.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hog the mic for three straight picks. I'll let you go back on the board with Tampa Bay Buccaneers now on the clock.
Finally, it's been forever since I got to make a pick. And for the Buccaneers here, very successful year for them. I don't think a lot of people would have predicted them picking 26 with their original pick before the season started. But here they are. They had a very, very successful year where they kind of proved that they could have Baker Mayfield maybe as not a franchise QB, but as a startable QB for them, win a playoff game against a pretty good Eagles team. And so they have to be pretty happy about their future. But there's a lot of underlying problems when you look at that roster. They had a ton of dead cap last year when they're kind of moving on from guys. So they do have a lot of roster spots. So I kind of expect this to be kind of a BPA approach. And for me, I think that's Chop Robinson for them right now on the board, edge rusher. One of the best first steps I've ever seen. Great Penn State edge bloodline there with Micah Parsons, and this is just I think this is kind of just a an easy fit, an easy fit into their defense. A great player. He's my edge one. I think he's the best edge prospect in this draft. So to get him at 26 is a major boon for them.
Yeah, and I think with Chop Robinson, he fits really well into that Bulls defense of being this 3-4 pass rusher that you kind of let pin his ears back. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is someone that, can kind of defend the run pretty well to where you're feeling confident in what Chop Robinson can do to just disrupt the passer and get to the backfield in order to wreak havoc on the play. So, when you have a guy like him available here at 26 with so much potential, so much upside, and just like traits that you are able to very easily sell yourself on, it's so easy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to just convince themselves that this is going to be the right pick for them now and in the future. And, I fully agree with them. With the 27th pick, Arizona Cardinals on the clock, and I'm having them go Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. This is another team that was top 10 in the NFL in zone coverage. I think they were ninth overall. And, they have some solid cornerback options with Sean Murphy Bunting and Garrett Williams, but you need that kind of number one, in my opinion. And you need some additional help just on the boundary because both those guys are guys that you're kind of rotating inside and out. So I think, you get Wiggins as the alpha of that room. And I think you are elevating this defense tremendously. You could also make the argument about needing additional pass rush up front in the front seven. You could talk about the interior offensive line for the Arizona Cardinals, but I think right now you have to try to add star players and kind of establish this foundation of talent. And you did that already with pick number 4. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., and you are definitely feeling confident about what the upside is in that passing game. But now in the passing defense, if you can get a guy like Nate Wiggins, who I think is just such a great player. I mean, he has so much ability, especially in zone with instincts and just playmaking that is going to translate to the NFL for Arizona and a guy like Jonathan Gannon, who just loves the defensive side of the football. I think it makes total sense.
Yeah. During your explanation, I realized technically this should have been my pick, but I'll give it to you because I picked the Cardinals at 4. It should have been mine. It's okay. Yeah, I'll give it to you. This is kind of a pick that I would
Apologies.
also make, so no worries. This is what I need. And like we kind of said with the Chargers with Arnold, they kind of benefit here from the corners falling a little bit, and they can kind of go BPA and fill their needs at the same time with all the picks they have. They don't need to panic. They don't need to reach for need. Just kind of lay back, let the picks come to you. Take the top player on your board each time. There's no stress, no worries. And yeah, Wiggins is definitely one of those guys that I feel at 27 is going to be one of the top available players if he's still on the board. And then
Yeah,
I'm up.
and
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, and you're on the clock now again here with 28. I'll just stay here quiet now, I guess.
Yeah, I'm too excited to make this pick. It's the Bills are here. I'm not saying the Bills are forcing taking wide receiver, but after the Diggs trade, I kind of think that they really, really need to kind of hit on this pick. They need a dynamic playmaker. And, you kind of do have some nice pieces already on your passing attack. You have Kincaid, you have Shakir, you have Knox, but those are kind of more supplementary or tertiary pieces. You kind of need that number one, that alpha guy in your wide receiver room that Diggs was. And I don't think there's a better pick on the board that kind of fits that role than Adonai Mitchell from Texas.
Yeah, when you look at Mitchell, maybe he isn't going to be the number one guy right away, but I think there are a lot of traits in his game that can eventually develop to that point. I know he wasn't necessarily ever the top passing option in an offensive college game, but there's been plenty of examples of guys that have been number twos in college and then ended up being the top receiving weapon for their team in the NFL. So for a guy like Adonai Mitchell, you're willing to gamble on the traits. And I think especially with the amount of not necessarily short passing game targets, but when you have tight ends that are kind of the focal point of your offense, and you have guys like Khalil Shakir that you're going to be passing to mostly shorter throws, getting a guy that's this big body jump ball, great body control guy like Adonai Mitchell on the outside, I think it kind of opens up the offense and allows Josh Allen to find where he wants to succeed. And I think that's kind of the main reason they got rid of Diggs was because I think as good of a player as he was, what mattered most to him was getting the ball and getting his production and getting his numbers. And when you have a quarterback as talented as Josh Allen, you just want him to do his thing and not have to worry about making sure that he's keeping someone happy. Now, that doesn't mean that Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir aren't asking for targets as well, but I think they understand their role a little bit more and are viewed under Josh Allen enough to where Josh Allen is going to have control of that huddle and be able to operate. And I think adding in a rookie that is just looking to make his way and prove himself in the league is going to have a lot more benefit, even though he's definitely not to the level of Diggs. I think it helps keep the offense loose and unrestricted in where Allen goes. And I think that's going to help a lot at this 28th pick. With the 29th pick, the Detroit Lions are on the clock. And I have them going Kool-Aid McKinstry, another cornerback that I just think is falling way too far down this board. But I mean, hey, the Detroit Lions do not have any issues with that. They will drink blue Kool-Aid all day because this is sorry, I had a loud car drive by. I don't know if that picked up on the mic, but yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry is a guy that was targeted. I think the number was 37 times over the entire season in college football and only allowed 17 receptions. So it's kind of easy to watch his tape and just be bored. But like I talked about on the race straw tape, 2-minute drill that I posted yesterday, if you're going to have a position that is boring for you, it's cornerback where you want it because that just means they aren't getting targeted, they aren't allowing much production, and as a result, they are keeping their assignment contained. McKinstry does that. I understand maybe he doesn't have the flashiest athleticism, he doesn't have the longest frame, but he continuously wins. This was the guy that, I mean, from his freshman season, was touted as the top guy, and honestly, heading into this year, I thought he was extremely overrated. But then he took tremendous strides in 2023 and established himself as one of the best players in the country. And to see him start to kind of fall down draft boards after doing it, it's mind boggling to me.
Yeah, definitely one of the more stranger falls that I've seen from a cornerback. I mean, when I watch the cornerback, I think this is the top guy in the class personally, just what he's shown on the field. But maybe there are some athleticism, maybe some measurements concerns with him. But I feel like this is such a great pick for the Lions. They kind of lose Cam Sutton. They kind of got exposed, I'd say, at corner in their matchup with the 49ers. So this is a guy who you can come in and can compete at the highest level and completely lock down players, and that's what they really, really need right now if they want to make another trip deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And another team looking to build on their playoff success, Baltimore Ravens here at 30. What do you have them doing?
Yeah, I think the Ravens kind of shocked everyone by trading Morgan Moses to the Jets for a fourth round pick. He seemed like a solid enough starter for them. He seemed like he could kind of be the starter at right tackle for another year, but they decided they wanted to move on, and now they kind of have a big hole at right tackle. And to fill a big hole at right tackle, I think they're going to go Tyler Guyton, um, offensive tackle. And I mean, this is just a pure needs pick for the Ravens who don't normally do that. This is kind of, they're a very heavy BPA team. Trade back, take whatever's the best is on the board. But I kind of think after that deep playoff run, you kind of got a winning formula here. You got winning success with the new offense, and so you kind of want to add to that, kind of maintain it while you can continue to make them more comfortable in this new kind of offense. And Guy can slide in right away and be that starter at right tackle for you.
Yeah, I mean, when they have Lamar Jackson watching film of rookie prospects coming in, of offensive linemen, then, I think it kind of points that they are probably going to be adding to their trenches in this draft. Maybe not first round, but they are definitely going to be doing it. So here at 30 makes total sense. Guyton is a guy that I think has a lot of athleticism, has a great frame. The big thing is about combining those. I think he plays a little bit too tall in his stance, and I think it kind of hinders his overall mobility as a blocker, but he is still someone that when you get him out in space and you let him kind of work downfield in a natural running motion, he showcases that ability. So getting that into his pass sets and getting that into his leverage and getting him down low to where he can kind of just use his natural strength and abilities to really dominate at the line of scrimmage, I think you're then opening up the can of worms that is what Tyler Guyton can be at his best. So, for a team like Baltimore where they've developed offensive linemen time and time again, I think it makes sense. And also, maybe it won't be what they end up doing, but if they make this pick, Tyler Guyton has talked to teams about playing left tackle. There's been a lot of rumors that Ronnie Stanley is not long for Baltimore. So maybe, you have Guyton step in at right tackle, and then after a year, you see what he can do at left tackle if you end up having to make some costs just to save some budget around town. With the 31st pick, San Francisco 49ers on the clock, but they get a little ring from their old Cross Bay rival and now the Las Vegas Raiders. They call in and they're wanting to take a quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. I know what I said earlier, right? All these QBs getting first round hype. It's not going to happen. I fell for it. I don't care. I think Michael Penix just makes way too much sense from a cultural standpoint in Las Vegas. I think he just kind of fits this energetic kind of gravitational type of personality that is so easy to buy into. And when you are the Raiders that are desperately seeking that, you need a guy that can kind of have the locker room kind of just really get invested into. You already have Minshew as your veteran starter, but I don't think he's the long-term answer. Getting a guy like Michael Penix who lit it up at Washington, getting him surrounded with weapons like Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it could lead to a lot of great success. There's obviously the uncertainty of what can Michael Penix do over the middle of the field in the short to intermediate game. Can he be the game manager that is willing to kind of churn out drives as a passer rather than just trying to go for the splash play over and over again? And I get that. But at the same time, he's had moments where he really flashes what he can be if he kind of takes those steps. I'm not willing to write a guy off just because of what he does when he's doing it at a high level. I think it's important to kind of say, when you are forced to adapt your game, how do you do it? And I know against Michigan, there were definitely some struggles. There were definitely some major issues, but I don't think that's necessarily as much on Penix as it was on just Washington being outmatched overall by that Michigan front seven. So I think Michael Penix is still an NFL quarterback. I think there's going to be a team that is bought in completely. And for me, it just makes a lot of sense if it's the Raiders. I think he's a great fit with that offense and a great fit for that team and identity.
Yeah, and Penix is not without his kind of non-traits issues. He is an older prospect. He does have those multiple kind of season-ending injuries that kind of make you pause. Is he going to pass the team's medicals? But hey, if the Raiders are going to take Mims, they might as well take Penix too. Throw the medicals out the window. And I agree with what you said. This is a great culture fit. I think when you kind of slot him into this offense and ask him to execute kind of not exactly what he did at Washington, but just get your ball to your best guys. And the Raiders can do that so easily. It seems like everybody on that Raider team has kind of bought into Pierce, and you need another culture energy guy like Penix who will buy in and who will lead that offense with Devontae Adams and do what is asked of him, execute the offense. So yeah, I kind of love this fit. There is some kind of debate between Penix and Bo Nix, but I think specifically for the Raiders, Penix is the better pick.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And, Here we are. Thank you for everyone who stuck around, but we have our final pick now. Bailey, take it home for the first round, Mr. Relevant.
Yeah. So Chiefs on the clock here. And wait, what's that? The phone's ringing again. That's crazy. So many trades in this first round. Who's on the other end?
Yeah, it's the Arizona Cardinals, the team that I hijacked from you. And they're interested in getting back in here for the third first round pick. I think, when you are a team that has the flexibility with all your draft capital, if you have a guy that you absolutely love, you're willing to kind of part ways with some of the later picks. And I think trying to just make a small jump from early second round to 32, it doesn't require lots, maybe, fourth round pick swap for a little bit of a swap here from 32 to 35. I think gives them an opportunity to get that extra year on their contract with this player. And I think it allows them to jump some teams ahead of them that, could very well be in the market for this guy. And that guy is Darius Robinson, defensive end out of Missouri, a player that I think has a lot of great traits. And I understand that there are questions about his overall finesse and athleticism. And, being an older defensive line prospect is something that some people have a hard time buying into. But when you look at the Arizona Cardinals front seven, they are kind of just in need of talent. And I think Darius Robinson is someone that you can trust to plug in somewhere in that front seven and make an impact. I think he fits well in that 4-3 defense, playing defensive end in Jonathan Gannon's system. I think he probably provides a strong side type of defensive end, opposite of BJ Ojulari, who you're kind of hoping makes that next year's stride. And I think it just helps elevate this overall defensive unit that unfortunately was not very good last year. Jonathan Gannon, I think, is a good coach, but you have to start to see that progress on defense. And I think he's going to pressure Austin Ford, and I think Austin Ford's going to understand that kind of urgency to improve the defense. So, getting a guy like Darius Robinson, who just was a leader for a phenomenal Missouri Tigers unit, I think would make a great day one for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, can't really go wrong when you have three first round picks and picking up the talent that they did. Just to talk a little bit about the Chiefs' decision to move back. I think the Chiefs are kind of in a weird spot at this pick in 32 with this run out. They can, I mean, I think their picks either going to be wide receiver or offensive tackle. Maybe they have some inside information on the Rashee Rice case, how long suspension he's looking for, if any, that could impact their pick. So I think moving back here, picking up some more capital, letting kind of the board fall to you is perfectly okay for them to do. And that's for Robinson's fit on the Cardinals. Yeah, I agree. Like we said before, they have so much draft capital. It's such a small move up for them. They won't even miss the pick. The guy's probably not making the roster anyways with the amount of rookies they have coming in. So yeah, go up, get your guy. Robinson is kind of he's kind of just like a power guy. That's and the Cardinals need power guys. They have kind of have their finesse, but you kind of need power as well to kind of go along with this. You can fit as a 4-3 DE, a 3-4 DE, make him bulk up, make him play 3 tech if you even want to on passing downs. He's kind of a can do everything player for them.
Yeah, and as you were talking about for the Chiefs, I think this is an opportunity to get a little bit earlier picks where you can kind of prepare for the future where you're probably going to be losing some of these key pieces around the roster that maybe aren't going to be able to be retained with the big Patrick Mahomes price tag on the roster, the big Chris Jones price tag on the roster, the big, just everyone that's on the roster. I don't need to name all of them, but they are a very top heavy roster right now. So getting draft picks when you've been able to hit so consistently with your rookie contributors, I think adding more and adding earlier picks is just it makes a lot of sense for an organization that has done so well on making the most of their opportunities. So, that recaps our round one, and we thank you guys so much. We always love to kind of reminisce at the end of these things. So hopefully you'll stick around for it. And this draft cycle, we felt like we underachieved a little bit in terms of just trying to get out consistent content. Unfortunately, a lot of it fell on me in the early stages where I was missing it in December and stuff. But we really thank all the support and all the kind comments and words where you guys are really encouraging and boosting our channel. And we hope to continue to produce content. Hopefully, we'll see you a little bit after the draft. And then through the summer and football season, we'd like to be producing more of the podcast stuff. And then, around late November, December, we'll be back with profiles. But thank you guys so much. And Bailey, I'm sure you have some other words as well to share to everyone.
Yeah, just we read every comment. We appreciate the love. It was a little bit of a rougher cycle for us. I think we did less profiles than we did last year, which is a little disappointing, but hopefully the quality improved a little bit, so you kind of got that quality over quantity stuff. And yeah, we're gonna be hopefully definitely releasing more content throughout the entire draft cycle. So not just take a little 6, 7 month break like we did last time, and we're gonna be producing more consistent stuff. So we hope you come along, follow the videos, watch it, leave your thoughts, and thanks you guys for watching.
Take care. I'm Michael Rochman. That's Bailey Kumar, and that's the 2 minute drill.